Hey everybody, welcome back. And today we are going to finish up chapter 23 with 23D.3, which is the end of our binomial distribution section. And today we're going to talk about the mean and the standard deviation of a binomial distribution. So just to recap a couple of basic terms that we've been covering, we talked about x, which is our binomial random variable, right? And the parameters are n and p, n being the number of trials or number of experiments that we're doing. And P is my probability of X occurring. So this notation here, we say that X is distributed as a binomial experiment with N and P. Again, with N and P being the number of trials and the probability of success. So we've already talked about the mean or the expected value, right? The mean is going to be N times P. And then today I just want to add on here to talk about the standard deviation. Now there's actually a big investigation we could do to actually come up with the formula. You know, I really don't like magic formulas too much, but this is a pretty standard formula. And if we had time in class, we probably would have done this individually as an experiment to derive this, because remember we talked about what is standard deviation, right? That's the spread of the data from the mean, right? We take our mean value and the deviation from that mean is our standard deviation. And this is a pretty basic common formula to do that with a binomial distribution. So this is when I have that probability of success or failure, just those two. I use the square root of n times p times 1 minus p, and that's it. So I just want to show you a couple of examples as to how that standard deviation is calculated. So here's the first one. This first example, we say we have a fair die. It's rolled 12 times, and X is the number of sixes that could result, right? So find the mean and the standard deviation of this distribution of X. So, well, first of all, we know that the expected value, if I roll a dice 12 times, the expected value is going to be, well, first of all, let's establish n is 12 and probability is 1/6, right? Because 12 rolls and my probability of rolling a 6 is 1 out of 6. And so again, we say that X is distributed as the binomial experiment of 12, 1/6 for n and p. So the expected result, so the average is going to be 12 times 1/6, which is 2. So we can imagine that we would probably get 2 sixes if we rolled the dice 12 times. Now, knowing that, what type of standard deviation are we going to have around there? And the standard deviation is fairly low. We can go ahead and just calculate the numbers. We have n and we have p, so it's going to be the square root of 12 times 1/6 times 1 minus p, which is 5/6, and we square root that, and we get 1.291, and that's my standard deviation. And that's it. So we talked about standard deviation a lot in chapter 20. We had a whole bunch of data that we were looking at with variance and everything. I want to talk briefly, just show you one more example. Here's one where I've got, it says 5% of a batch of batteries are defective. And so let's say I take a random sample of 80. Then let's look at the mean and standard deviation. So again, how many would I expect to be defective out of 80? Well, that's my mean, so that's going to be 80 times 1/20th. Again, n is equal to 80. My probability 5% is 1/20th. And my mean is going to be 4. So I should, on average, 4 out of 80 should be defective. And how much is that going to vary? What's my standard deviation? Again, that's pretty low. My standard deviation is less than 2. When I calculate 80 times 1/20th times 19/20th, I take the square root of that, then I have a standard deviation of 1.9. And again, because just knowing that we're going to have about 5% of that batch is defective. And so we expect a battery to be defective 4 times, and our standard deviation is 1.949. And that's it. So just check these out. Numbers 2 and 4 of section 23D3. I don't think you'll have much trouble with those, but if you do, please ask on the message boards or the discussion pages, and make sure that you upload your assignment up into eCampus as well, so that I can give you credit for it. Hope all is going well, and this will conclude chapter 23, and we're going to look at some of the topics in chapter 24 to finish up our year coming up next. We'll talk to you then. Take care.